crafty family, it's me. Today I am going to do a video for Shemi Dixon's dollar store art challenge. And basically what that is we're given a challenge to use $15 up to $15 in dollar stores, discount stores, thrift stores, creative reuse stores. You get the idea. We're allowed to spend $15. And I am going to show you how to, I'm going to actually do a two-part video for this, and this will be great for the people that I've been doing the beginners mixed media class, and to show you how to use things that you already have or use very cheap items to make beautiful things. So in this first part of this video, the first part, I'm going to show you how to make things to use in your project that you can use that for cheap, for no money, pretty much. We're allowed to use whatever tools we have, scissors, hot gun, some ink pads, paints, whatever, but the idea is to have the main things that we, put it together and use, embellishments and such, be homemade from items that we got at a dollar store. You get the idea. So what I want to do is first teach you how to do something that is really cool, really inexpensive, and has a lot of uses. And it requires your hot glue gun. And most crafters have a hot glue gun. You can get one for $5 at Walmart. And hot glue sticks are cheap. You can get a few hundred of them for like $3 or $4, and they'll last you forever. What we're going to start making today is a stencil. I made this with hot glue, and it is perfectly durable and fine to use, spray through. It's not the kind of stencil you can use modeling paste through and stuff like that, but you can paint, you can paint through it. You can, and it's not supposed to be perfect circles. It's supposed to look like a distressed circle type of thing. And it's very easy to make, very easy. And I also made one with squares. So I made one with circles, one with squares. How cool, right? I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. There's lots of videos out there showing you how to make these, and I used to make them all the time. And they would last a few years before they would start getting kind of icky and you'd want to, make a new one. So this will last a long time. And what's nice about them is you can kind of just go like this and throw them in a plastic bag, and it'll always pop out like that. Or you could store it in a folder or what have you. If you're going to store a couple of them together, I advise you to put a piece of wax paper between them, because sometimes if you leave them over time, they can kind of stick together a little bit. So just throw a piece of wax paper between them, or put them in separate little bags and just fold them lightly like that in little baggies. But I'm going to show you a couple of tricks on other things you can make. Not just this. There's several parts to this to show you how to utilize your hot glue gun. That's one of the most common tools people have in their arsenal of crafts is a hot glue gun. It's usually one of the first things you end up getting when you're doing creative things. So I figured it was the best thing to do to show you guys how to do this. So since I already have circles and squares, I thought I would do a triangular pattern to show you how it kind of works. You don't have to worry about being super precise. You're doing this as, you're never going to get perfect circles. You're never going to get perfect squares. You're not looking for that. So get that out of your head before you let the perfectionist in you take over and try to make everything perfect. And if you do make a mistake, it's so easy. Let it cool off, and then just cut the part out that you don't like and do it over again. It's very simple. So all you're going to do is get a non-stick mat. You want to make sure you have a non-stick mat. If you don't have a non-stick mat, guess what? Parchment or wax paper will do. I used to use parchment or wax paper as my craft mat for years, and it works. You might want to change it out every week or so, but it works great. You don't need an expensive craft mat. You really don't. It takes time to build up your stash. I talk about that a lot. The things that I have took me many, many, many years, over a decade to build up. So don't feel like you have to have everything right away. You don't have to have fancy things to do crafts. It's all about creating. It's not about what you have that's fancy. So what you want to do is start out on your craft mat, wherever you feel like it. If you want to start in the middle of the stencil and work out, or start at the edge and work in, it's up to you. And you want to make your designs, and if you have to go back over an area because it's too thin, go ahead. I'm going to show you how to make it. I'm going to show you some tricks to it afterwards, some options that you'll have. It works nice if you make a variety of different sizes. So like I made some bigger circles, some little circles. So that's always nice. Let's see. And you don't want them all to be in a row. And like I said, if you mess one up, no big deal. Just cut it out and just let it cool, and then take your scissors, chop that away, and do a different one. I like to make them interlocking. So what I'll do is I'll go up over the last one. You want to take your time. Don't rush. You know, you don't want to pump out globs. You want to get used to using your glue gun. Best thing to do is to not start off right away making a stencil, but start off making some random shapes here and there, not even worrying about making a stencil, just to get the feel of your gun, because, you know, you don't want to push it out and be like, oh, like that, because that's not going to make you a nice shape. Did you like the sound effect, by the way? Don't worry about glue strings at all. Don't even fret. Don't even be like, oh, there's going to be glue strings. I'm going to show you a way like that. They'll be gone. So don't even worry about it. There could be glue strings galore. Don't even worry. Just keep going. Go over top of them. Don't worry. We'll get rid of those suckers. And you're just going to work, you know, slowly, gently. If it's not a perfect line, don't worry about it. Like that one's definitely not. Who cares? You got glue strings. Who cares? The glue gun, I always say, is the most important and the most versatile thing that you can get for crafting, especially for mixed media and journaling and stuff like that. The glue gun is the best tool. It really is the best tool. But don't be intimidated to go over lines. Who cares? Just do it. I'm going to show you how to fix any mistakes afterwards. I'm going to show you how to make everything real nice after we're done. So you just want to keep doing this. Continual patterns, just however you want to. You just want to make sure the lines connect to another triangle, obviously, or whatever shape you're doing. They can be skinny triangles, they can be wide triangles, but you want them to touch in at least a couple of spaces. You don't want them all hanging off willy-nilly, because you want it to be like, you know, you see how they're all kind of connected, so that you can make them overlap. You can make a few of them right next to each other. They don't have to overlap. Kind of make it a variety. And if you have like spaces that are weird, you can just go in and like make this into a triangle. So I could just take it and go right across here and make it into like a weird wonky triangle just to fill in the space. Triangles are a little hard. The best thing to start out with is squares and circles. That's the easiest one to start out with, because like triangles get a little more tricky as you're going, but I already made the square and circle, so I don't need that one again. It's kind of relaxing to do this as well. See, now I have like part of a triangle. It just needs its little side. So I'll just do that. See, and then I've got another triangle. And all these little glue strings, I don't know if you could see them, but they're there. I don't even worry. Who cares? I have an easy, quick way to fix that. So now I'm going to make a bigger one. And if you need a recommendation on a glue gun to buy, I'm going to suggest this one, the Surebonder Detail Glue Gun. It has an on and off switch on here. It has a light indicator to let you know. It's not a double speed or double dual temperature. I mean, you don't need dual temperature. I mean, I guess it's okay, but I don't see the point of it. This is a high heat glue gun, so you want to get either multi-temp or high heat glue sticks, not low temp glue gun sticks. Ugh, you know what I mean. But this is a great glue gun. I've had many glue guns over my years, and I actually used, and some of you who have been following me for a long time know, that's how easy that came off, know that I've had the same glue gun since I was in my probably late teens, early 20s. It's 20 something years old, and I finally, like, sometime last year, replaced it and got a decent glue gun. And let me tell you something, this is a great flippin' glue gun, because I would not replace that other glue gun for nothing, and there was never one that I liked better than it, but I found this sucker. I'll let you see. Surebonder. This is a great glue gun. I'm picky about my glue guns. When you see that you're starting to get low, your glue stick, a little trick is if you take your glue stick and put a drop of glue at the just a little drop of glue at the back of it and put it in quickly and let it hit the other glue stick, it'll secure to the other glue stick, and it won't give you that problem where you're pumping and you have to keep pushing the glue stick in. So that's a good way to have a continual glue stick without having any issues. Sometimes it comes loose if you don't get enough glue on there, but you don't want to put a lot of glue because then it'll stick out the sides and it won't go in there very well. Just a tiny drop usually does the trick. You can, if you want to, do different directions. You can like do this much and then, well, this one's up high, so I would wait for it to dry, turn it around, and then do different direction triangles, like work in wonky directions. You can do whatever you want. It's your stencil. See, like none of my triangles are very, you know, good. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to just be distressed, kind of. If you need to go back over a line because it's too thin, go back over it. No big deal. I mean, I have a lot of glue strings here. I don't know if you could see it, but no big deal. Now I'm not going to make this one too big. I'm just going to do a couple more triangles. I'm basically making this one to show you guys. I don't want to bore you with too many. I'll probably leave it at that, and we're going to let that dry up there while we work on something else down here. Now, you can make this as big as you want. I would make some of them, you know, smaller, some of them bigger, depending on your projects. You want to think about that. You can use them on your jelly plate too, if you have a jelly plate. If you don't, then you can make your own jelly plate. I have a video for that, and if I remember, I'll put a little iCard so you can click on that in the video. If I can remember to go back and do that, I will. Or I'll put it in the, maybe I'll put it in the description, either way. But how to make your own jelly plate for about, I don't know, about $12 to $15, and make it as big as you want. Let's see. Oh, you can also make shapes. So if you want to just make some random single shapes that you can throw down on your page in random spots and spray over them or whatever, you can do that too. So you can just make like a very wonky circle and then add a couple of lines to it where it looks like it wasn't drawn right, and then do a couple of them in different sizes. I need another glue stick. You will go through a lot of glue sticks doing stuff like this, but it's worth it because the things that you're going to make with the cheap glue sticks, come on, get on there. I mean, glue sticks are cheap. Stencils aren't. And in the second video, the part 2, we're going to use these stencils and the other things that we create. So there's some random shapes. Another thing that you can do while those are drying, besides stencils and like these little shapes, which I would assume they're less called stencils, they're more like a mask, because it masks off an area on your project and you spray and it gets everywhere except for that little area. Whereas a stencil, usually it has a pattern like this and you just get the shapes there, which these also act kind of like a mask because they don't have the square around them. You know how stencils usually come in a square and they have like a frame around them? Well, masks don't have a frame. So these are kind of like stencil masks. They're like almost the same thing. Yeah, and that's how easy they come up. You just pull it. Just like that when it's dry. And I don't know if you could see the glue strings. I doubt it. Whoops, this way. But there are a lot of glue strings in there. But I'm going to show you how to get rid of that in a minute. Another thing that you can do is make embellishments. And actually, I was reminded of this. This particular one I was reminded of by Nina Rabina. I was watching one of her videos and she did an embellishment. I was already prepared for everything I was going to make in this video, and she made an embellishment of a treble clef. I'll put the video below. You got to see her video. She did a great piece, mixed media piece, and she used a glue gun made treble clef. And it came out beautiful, and she painted it with metallic paints and grunged it. It looks like metal. I used to do stuff like that because I didn't have embellishments. I didn't have no money. I would make them, and I'm going to show you another way, the way that I was originally going to show you before I forgot about this way, to make embellishments too. But let me show you this. You can make hearts. Now you could sit and make these hearts. And like you could sit one afternoon and make a bunch of them And what I do is I fill them in. You can also use these as masks as well. You don't have to have, you can use solid shapes as masks. That's what masks usually are, is a solid shape. Let me make sure I got it all. Okay. So you can make stuff like this. Another thing that I used to do a long time ago is I used to make letters. A long time ago, before they had, you know, where you can go and buy, you know, plastic letters or stuff like that. I remember you could stamp letters and they would have these stickers that were like a little puffy, and I couldn't afford all that stuff. So I would make my own alphabet that was dimensional with glue. I would make it, I would sit down on a piece of wax paper and I would write an A about 5 times, write a B 5 times, write a C 5 times, and then I would do all lowercase letters, and I would do the whole thing on wax paper, and I would just leave it on the wax paper. And then when I needed an alphabet, the wax paper was in the folder and it would have all my letters stuck to it, and all I had to do was peel one up as I needed it, put it on my project, paint it any color I wanted, and I had my own alphabet letters. I mean, if that's not being frugal and having a genius idea, I don't know what is. And you get good at it and do like all different fonts and stuff and do fancy stuff. Or you can just leave it basic. And if you do them right next to each other, you can basically get them all the same size. And since I did a D, I'm not going to use those letters, but I'm gonna do the word dream for my project that we're going to do in the second part. So I'm going to do the rest of the word in lowercase letters, and we'll use it in the project. Lowercase e's are the hardest thing to do with a glue gun. Oh, that didn't come out too bad, because sometimes when it has like the little space for the top of the E, you end up screwing it up a little bit. I may have to do this A more than once because sometimes it's hard to do. Not too bad, but I'm going to have to put my M down here because there's no room there. So there we go. I have the word dream. I have a heart. This might be dry. Yep. I have a heart. It has a little hole in it, so I'm going to try to fill that in a little. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to pat it down a little because I got it nice and smooth on top. But I can show you how to fix that too, so don't even worry about it. So now we've got circles. We've got a heart. We've got stencils. And we've got an alphabet. Well, part of an alphabet. The word thing was always my favorite thing to do because you can make as many words as you want, and you don't have to spend the money on expensive stickers that only give you 2 A's in the whole pack. So if you have, you know, a word that has 2 A's in it, you're screwed. That's it. You can't use your alphabet anymore if you have any other words with A's in it. This way you make as many words, letters as you want to make your alphabet. Let's see. There's my A. Now, if you have a problem where can you see this, where the A has a little hot glue tail on it here? Just take your scissors and trim it. You can trim these at any time if you want to be a little bit more of a perfectionist about it. You can go in and trim off any of the excess that you have around it. It's very easy to do. Just like that. Because you're always going to have a little bit where you pick up your glue gun, especially on letters where you're doing smaller areas. My D's pretty good. There's a little part there. But you just go through and when you pick them up, you notice they turn a different color, kind of. They go from clear to almost a white color. And there you go. ABC Dream. But you can put them any way you want. You can make them wonky looking, but it's really cute. So those are some of the things that you can do with the glue gun, but I'm not done yet. You can make shapes, you can make letters, and trust me, you're going to want to see the second part of this video to see what we create with our cheap items. Now, you might not have this right away. And there is a way, if you have a metal embellishment, let me see if I have one. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to try it just for you guys. If I have something here. Hold on. Well, let me go grab something real quick. Okay, another thing that you could do with your glue gun, but we won't be using this on our project, but it's just something you can do later. Now, I've done this before. I've never done it with something so thin, so this might be an issue. I'm not sure. It might work. It's like a really thin gear. Is you take something, it's got to be metal, and you take your glue gun and you surround it with glue all the way off the edge. Of course, I'm running out of a glue stick and I don't have time to do the whole glue thing. You want to try to do it, you know, so that you don't want to, like, in other words, don't go slow. You don't have to go really fast, but you want to kind of get it in one good. You just want to put a lot of glue. Like, don't worry about the fact that you're putting a big blob of glue. Let that completely dry. And I'm going to show you what we could do with that. Okay, while that's drying, I'm going to show you something else. Okay, now this is something you might not have as a beginner crafter, but if you do, awesome. If you have silicone molds, now these could be molds that you might have for candy making, as long as they're silicone, okay, you can do this. I used to do this a lot. You fill the mold, and you gotta be careful because you don't want it to be overfilled. And it can be hard to get into like the smaller spaces. And if you have a spatula, it usually will help. But you got to leave the spatula on until it fully dries. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it can make it a mess. Or not till it fully dries, just till the spatula can be removed. It can help push it down in the, this might have been a bad one to do, but you can clean it up when you're done. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can cut it and clean it. I might have screwed this one up. Yep, I did. Hold on. I got to get closer to it so I can see. The problem I was trying to do is get in those little slots where the antenna are, but I'm not going to worry about that. See, that's the thing. You need something with an open space without a lot of little spots. But I'm just going to worry about the body. I'm not going to worry about the antenna this time. And you don't want to overfill it as much as you know, try not to anyway. I haven't done this in a long time. I used to know how to do it really good so that it was like perfect. It's been a long time. You want to make sure you don't get air bubbles, so if you have to, kind of use the tip of your glue gun to push down some of the glue. That one probably will come out better, I hope. Let me try a leaf here. This thing is being a pest. Don't be afraid to stick the tip of your glue gun into the mold. It's not going to hurt it. I mean, you don't want to. You want to get it nice and compacted down there. This is one that I used to do all the time. Okay. And if it's a little bumpy on the back, don't worry about it. Glue strings, don't worry about it. I just want to get them off my hand and let it dry. This one is dry. Okay, so now the gear is dry. So while the other ones are drying, we'll do the gear. So now what we got, this is still a little bit warm, but that's okay. I'll be gentle. I'll be gentle. You want to just pop the gear out. Just carefully pop the gear out of here. And it should release. And like I said, I never used something this thin before when I did this. I've always used like metal buttons and metal charms. There we go. Now it's a little thin. I probably should have built it up a little bit more, which actually I'm going to try popping this back in and I'll build it up on the sides a little bit. Because I guess I could do that. I could do whatever I want. Let's see if I can figure out how to get it back in there. I might not be able to. Ooh, it's hard to see. Because it's not like perfect. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get it back in there. But anyway, because it's such a thin charm, it didn't have a thick enough sides on it. If I were to use something thicker, dang it, I wish I had something like right close to me. Let me go see if I have something thicker because it's really cool when it's done. Okay, yeah, that's too thin. This is a little thicker. Let's try it again. Let's play. So we're going to just, and when it's something like this where it's not round, it's more long, I just kind of go back and forth. Covering it completely with glue. And then even covering it again. Like that. And I can actually bring you guys in a little closer. I realize I'm out a little far, sorry. There we go, a little bit. I don't want to bring you in too much because then I'll lose my, I won't pay attention enough to the screen. Okay, so now the leaf and the butterfly should be dry. So while that's drying, let me get these guys out. And look at that. It even has its yep. Focus, please. Anyway, you get the drift. So you can use it in your molds. And of course, it's not as perfect as doing a clay mold. And if you get a little bit of schmutz on the side from it not being perfect, just trim it off. But look, now you have a leaf. Focus. Jeez. But anyway, you catch it. You're getting it. So we got a leaf and a butterfly. And then as soon as that's done drying, I'll show you what that is. Some of you would probably guess. There's a lot of things you can do with hot glue. Hot glue is a fantastic and cheap way to make cool embellishments for your projects. And there's even another thing that we're going to do, but I'll show you that in the second video. I'll save that for them because that has to do with the process of what we're going to use this stuff for. Are we done? Ooh, not yet. Not yet. Let's make another leaf, shall we? Yes, please. Okay, let's make a leaf. Let me stick this in the back so that I don't have issues, because it does take a lot of glue, especially when you're using molds where you're filling in a lot. Well, to use the stencils too, it takes a lot of glue. And I find that going along the bottom of the stencil is better, like starting off with your tip at the bottom of the, not stencil, mold, so that you make sure you get all the detail of whatever it is. Because if you just fill it from the side, you know, just from like the upper part here and just dump it in, you might get air bubbles and it won't give you all that texture. So just do a layer on the bottom and then go back over it. I just spin it as I go. Sometimes it's hard to see if it's actually filled. You can like look at it, but it's hard to see if it's filled because the glue is clear. So it's just weird. That's still cooling. I will make another butterfly. But you don't want to do anything that has fine detail. Like, you know how they have those, like I've shown them in other videos, the lace that are meant for like cake decorators and stuff. You definitely don't want to use that type of stencil or that type of mold. I keep saying stencil, but it's a mold. Because that's not, hot glue is not precise enough to get fine detail. It's just meant for basic shapes. Very basic shapes. Now I got an air bubble in there, which may cause a problem. I don't know if you could see it. See the air bubble down at the bottom there? A couple of them actually. You want to try not to have air bubbles. Alright, I think I can get off this thing now. And you see how the key is embedded in it. Now I'm not going to be using this today, but for future reference, because metal and hot glue don't generally stick, I got a little air bubble, but you get the point. See, now what I could do is take a piece of clay and use that as a mold. So that could be a mold. If you do have any polymer clay or anything, you can stick the polymer clay in there and then take it out carefully, because you could bend this a little bit. It's like a silicone mold almost, except you can't use hot glue in it because obviously that would just stick to it. But you can use it with clay. Or what I like to do, if you don't have clay, you don't have to have clay. You can take toilet paper and some Mod Podge and toilet paper and put it in there and let it dry and pop it out. I can't guarantee you that wouldn't stick, but you could try it. If you take ripped up pieces of toilet paper and mix it together with Mod Podge, it makes like a paper clay. You might have to put a little bit of water too, like a watered down Mod Podge, and you make like a paper clay, and you can use that as molds, and it actually comes out pretty cool. So you can make molds, your own molds with, and you want something that has raised sides, probably even thicker than this, but this will work. So you want something that's a little on the thicker side, and it works best. So these are fun things that you can do with hot glue. This one came out really good. So we've got some butterflies. This one's still drying. It's still hot. So yeah, we made some fun stuff. So in the next video, what I'm going to show you is I am going to make a journal out of things from the dollar store and our glue creations. Other than that, we're just going to use some basic cheap dollar store style paints that you can get from Walmart for like 65 or 75-cent paints. We're going to use cheap paints. We're going to use our cheap handmade stencils. Oh, I forgot something before we go. I totally forgot something. So with these stencils, I wanted to show you one more thing. It may not be relevant for the project that we're using, but it might be relevant in the future. First things first, the glue strings. I promised to show you how to do the glue strings. Heat gun. Use your heat tool. Hold it up so you can see where because if you put it down on your mat and do it, sometimes the strings just kind of stick to the mat, and then when you pick it up, they're still there. But if you hold it up and you do this, you can get all the strings. They kind of, and it's not going to be possible to show you in the video. You're not going to be able to see them. They're so thin, you can't see the strings. You're just going to have to take my word for it that if you heat gun it, and you're not going to melt it, it's not going to melt that easily. You're just going to go over it, and it'll get rid of the glue string. So let me show you. All the glue strings are gone. And then after you do that, this is the time that you look, or before you do that probably, look at your stencil and see if you have any weak spots. Any spots where the glue is too thin or is kind of separating. And then you go back in and you fix it, and then you do your thing. So another thing I want to show you is if you want to, let's say, like this one came out fairly smooth, my heart. But if you end up with, when you're doing especially a solid, if you end up with a bumpy top, now I have a craft iron, but you can use your regular iron. I guess you could put it, I don't know the setting. You're going to have to play with it. This one only has one setting. So I'm thinking maybe like a medium high. But what you do is you take a piece of parchment paper or wax paper and you put it over top and you iron it. You just go over it for a few seconds. But keep in mind when you're doing this is that it will kind of, if you're not careful, it'll flatten out your shape. And I'll show you an example in a minute. So you just want to do it a little, and it'll stick to the paper, and you can kind of turn it over and see that it is flattened. I can take it off. I'll let it cool a second. I can take it off when it's cool, and it's going to be flatter on top and nice and smooth. So here's some examples of, you know, if you flatten it a lot, it'll get thin, but it'll kind of widen. And I don't have a solid one, but a solid one would flatten out and kind of lose its shape because it's solid. It's got a lot of glue. But a thin one, the idea between, to do the let me get this freaking word out. The idea behind putting your iron on your shapes, like these shapes, for instance, would be maybe not for the singles, but for the stencils. It's a good idea, and I never see anybody do this. But a stencil, if you're going to use it on your jelly plate, if you use you can spray through it, you can lay it down after you have some paint down, but if you want to take a piece of paper, let's say, if you use a jelly plate, and let's say I'm brayering some paint on my jelly plate. I am seriously having an issue with words today. I'm like half in the bag. Let's pretend this mat is my jelly plate. I put paint all over it. Okay. Lay down my stencil, and then I take a piece of paper over it to get the stencil. Because of the glue gun being, or the glue being thicker than a normal stencil, it's kind of bumpy in areas, you are never going to get a good print of that on your paper. It's never going to happen. However, if you take a piece of parchment paper, let me get one that's big enough, use the ripping sound, and you put it over your stencil. Now you want to be careful in this situation because you could flatten it out and make it so that the sides widen. That's what's going to happen. If you do it too long, your sides are going to widen. Now, if you want it to do that, that's awesome. You could totally do that. It would give you a totally different type of stencil, but it would actually, you can make it stencil thin. You can make it just as thin as a regular stencil, and then it would work perfect. But if you don't want really wide, let's say triangles, as these are triangles, what you do is you go over it for just a few seconds in each spot, and you keep checking it, because all you're going to do is take down some of that raised edge, because you know how the stencil, when you're doing hot glue, the top is kind of lumpy, bumpy. It's never perfectly flat, especially if you're going over areas. You know what I mean? Because if you go over one circle to make another circle, it's going to leave like a lump. So what this does is it smooths it down. It doesn't, you can make it, you don't have to make it this flat for it to work, but you can, because that's pretty cool. But what you can do is just put a little bit of a flattening on the top. It'll just smooth, and now look, it's not bumpy anymore when I smooth over it. It's nice and smooth. And you can pick it up. It'll stick to the parchment, but that'll give you a good idea to look at it. And it'll also flatten the other side because you're doing it against a surface like that. So you could just check it and see. It will widen it slightly. And you can just go back if you need to. Go back over areas if you need to. Or if you're done, let it cool for a couple of minutes. And then peel it off and you're ready to go. And And what that does is it gives it a nice uniform, smooth surface, whereas this one, I haven't done that to. It's very lumpy, bumpy. And I did it to the squares, so I could show you that right away. I gave the squares a flat surface. So now, if I want to take my jelly plate, or put it on my jelly plate, where's my paper, and go over it, I'm going to have a better result of getting on the inside. Better if you flatten it more, like if you make it more flatter like this, a little bit more like this, you can get the best result for that. So that's an idea for using stuff on your jelly plate. And what I like to do is I take a bunch of circles that are like this, really thin. I got a heart, got a circle. Now these are just as thin as a stencil. They're like paper thin, but they're still fine. They will work. You can put them underwater to clean them. And you put them on your jelly plate in random orders, and then you can stencil, you know, put your paper over it and pick up a print, and then pick them up and pick up the print from underneath. If you don't know anything about jelly printing, this is going to go right over your head, and I apologize. Look it up. Look up jelly printing. Here's a couple of squares I thinned out. Here's one that was a triangle and a circle, but it ended up looking like a bubblegum machine. I'm just going to cut this out and call it that, whatever. I did some little like snowflakey shapes like this. This one I flattened out, but I can cut it. I can trim the areas that get funny looking when it starts to flatten out. I did these, but I didn't flatten these out. But these are great to use on a jelly plate or just to spray over and make some lines. And you can also make like a regular stencil and make yourself a square and do like stripes. You could do, what is it called? Chevron. You could do swirlies and make yourself a glue outline with the hot glue, like a square, and then put a design going all the way across. You could do like a spider web. You can get real intricate with it. It's pretty cool. Let me take the triangles off. And all you got to do for that is just carefully peel it off of the backing. And if you happen to break part of it, get some hot glue and go back at it. I don't think I've ever broken one, but it can happen. But this is a fantastic way to make your own supplies. Unique too, because these aren't, nobody else has this pattern. They might make one like it, but it's not going to be the same as yours because yours, you made it. And everybody makes things different. But there's my triangles. I can go back in and fix some details, which I'll do. But, I mean, how cool. How cool. How stinking cool. I got my letters to make my project. So, yeah. So, this is the type of stuff you can do. Oh, we didn't check my heart. Here's my heart. It's nice and smooth. So, when I paint it, which is what I plan on doing, it'll have a smoother surface on it. Or even the back side I can use. But I might make a few hearts for this project, so I'm probably going to obviously do that off camera. You don't want to see me sit there making glue hearts. So I'm going to go. This will be the end of part 1, and then we will do part 2. And hopefully I'll have both those videos up pretty much back to back. But if I'm going to leave some links in the description below. I'm going to leave links to Shemi Dixon's YouTube page. You need to check her out. She is a great resource for doing things on a budget. I will leave a link to Nina Rabina, who reminded me about doing the shapes that you can paint and distress and use as pieces in your project. Yeah. So I hope this inspires you to use your glue gun and make a day of it and make all kinds of shapes, make all kinds of molded things, and look at that. Perfect. And have a blast and make some supplies for yourself. It only costs you some glue sticks, and if you don't have molds, don't do molds. Wait till you get some. I found these on clearance about 5 years ago. I found a bunch of Martha Stewart molds on clearance. That's the only reason I have them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have them. I buy things on clearance. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Make sure you do what you love and love what you do, and be nice to people. Oh yeah, and also, if you can, some of you know, most of you know, I have Crohn's disease and I'm out of work. I'm having surgery in probably the next week or two. My doctor's going to be calling me today about that to schedule it. If you're able to donate to my GoFundMe, I'd really appreciate it. The link will be in the description. It'll help me pay my bills, just a few bills for the next couple of months while I am getting my house ready to sell, so I could sell my house and get out of this debt. And if you can't help, if you wouldn't mind sharing it through YouTube, through Facebook, whatever, Twitter, share the link so that maybe somebody else that sees it can help. I'd really, really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will be back soon for part 2. Woohoo! Bye, guys.